And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Jessica, who received a message from God during her near-death experience, which we're going to talk about today and more. Jessica, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Jessica, let's start on the day of your accident and go from there.
Well, I was working for FEMA. I was only 20 and a single mother, and I had an infant child. It was a beautiful Monday morning. I had just gotten over celebrating Cinco de Mayo, which I had told all of my clients I was going to do. And a friend of mine had stayed the night, which was a rare treat, because she was traveling from St. Petersburg, Florida to San Antonio, Texas, and I was her overstay trip, thankfully. So we stayed up most of the night talking, and she didn't want me to go to work the next day. We were both very in tune with our gifts that have been given to us, and she just told me it was a bad day. And I said, don't worry about it. I get paid. I had no worries in the world, get to work. I was tired. So for the first time ever working for FEMA, I let somebody else drive me. And my whole office was driving to from Hammond, Louisiana to Slidell, Louisiana to go have a meeting because we were handling the Katrina crisis in South Louisiana. And on that day, it was no clouds in sight, gorgeous. We were talking office gossip. And a nanosecond later, I see a car hit us 140 mile an hour head on. It wasn't a car. It was actually a Chevy Trailblazer, and she died on impact. I remember waking up from the accident and saw my coworker with his arm like disconnected, and he was slapping the seat, waking me up, screaming, Jesse, baby girl, wake up, wake up. And I couldn't take in everything that was going on. And I just looked down at my legs and I saw they were deformed. So I don't know if I said it or I thought it, but I remember I was looking through the broken windshield. And I either said or thought, God, take care of my child. This is something I'm not going to survive. And then as they were loading me into the ambulance, my blood curdling screams had stopped. And my mom got really upset and scared. And I apparently, per her, I told her, don't worry. Kenny's going to make sure I make it through this. Kenny is my brother that died when I was 16. Took a massive toll on me. I had to go move to New Orleans for a few months, party it out. Because at 16, when you're abused and, raised in an abusive, alcoholic, drug addiction family, you don't know what else to do. So I went and did that, came back, went back to school, had my son. Because like I said, I just kind of knew I was going to die ever since my brother died. It was something I was okay with. And when I died, that was just the only word I have for it is just pure euphoria. There was not any worry, care, and anything in the world. My body felt magical. Like the process of death and what I experienced was absolutely beautiful. And it's something most of us will see in our life and experience at some point in our life. And I just think that is awesome. And it's having gone through it, it is wonderful. And I want to enjoy all of my time here on this planet, in this realm, whatever, this lifetime, because I've got an amazing son, the most amazing husband I could ask for. So I'm ready to ride this ride out because I know after this it's going to be wonderful and amazing because I've already experienced it twice.
Did you die at the scene, in the ambulance, or at the hospital?
I actually died in the hospital twice. I had developed ARDS, adult respiratory distress syndrome, and it's very rare. And what's even rarer is the survival rate. It's 2%. I only know of one person in 16 years of contracting ARDS who has lived to tell about it as well. And the closest ventilator for me to be on, because my lungs were turning into concrete, they were no longer a soft breathing tissue muscle. So they were like I said, they were turning concrete. So I they had to manually keep me alive until that ventilator got here from Houston.
So you died there in the hospital. Do you just wake up in another realm, or what happened?
It was black. All I could see was black, and I could feel everything. And I knew it was a place of peace, and I was loved in that place. Um, and I know that's a place I'm going to go back to, and I can't wait. But like I said, I do want to spend my time here with my husband and my child, before I do go back to that space again. A couple summers ago, we had been drinking and partying. It was summer, and I fell not once, but twice the same way into a pool. And I didn't bother trying to swim. I know how to swim. I've been thrown into a bayou when I was a little child. That's how we were taught to swim in Louisiana growing up. It's either sink or swim. So, yeah, I didn't bother trying to fight for my life when I fell into the pool because that was the closest thing I have felt since that NDE. And my son jumped in the water both times to rescue me.
To me, you were in what we call the black void. At some point, you had a conversation with God. Was that there?
Yeah, it was during that whole time. He told me, apparently, he told me, and with haste, because I'm a very stubborn woman. When I woke up from my coma, I had to learn to walk, talk, feed myself, potty train, everything all over again. And I did not have this accent before the accident. I forgot what my neurologist said it's called. He said I could have woke up speaking a language I've never even heard of before. I was like, well, why didn't you put me with Selma Hayek's accent? It would sound sexy, but it would look crazy coming from me. We can't pick what we get, but
Well, it sounds like
yeah, I did.
It sounds like you have a southern accent. How different was it?
It wasn't this thick. I could tell you that. A lot of my friends they were joking, making fun. They were like, why do you sound so country? Was your speech therapist from Alabama? And I'm like, no, he was from the Bronx, if anything. So my neurologist, he gave me the disorder or whatever it's called, because like I said, I did sustain 2 brain injuries in that accident, a frontal left lobe brain injury and a mild TBI.
What message did God give you?
The night before the accident, my best friend had stayed over. She had a lot going on. I mean, a lot. Her dad was dying. I had a lot going on. Um, so I had stayed up pretty most of the night talking to her, and she didn't want me to go to work the next day. Like I said, we both have gifts, and she was more in tune to hers at the time. And what was your question again? I'm sorry, my short-term memory kicked in.
That's okay. I was wondering what the message was that
Okay,
God
yes.
gave you.
He told me that she was pregnant and to name her child Roman. It was strict orders. And I told my mother, I said, I am not going to talk anymore until you hand me the phone so I can talk to Ashley and give her this message. My mother knows I'm very stubborn, so she listened. And I remember telling her, Ashley, you're pregnant. And she almost dropped the phone. She's like, how do you know? I just took a test 3 minutes ago. I haven't told anybody. I'm in San Antonio, Texas. You're in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I said, God told me you're pregnant. He also told me you better name that baby Roman. And she did. And he's a blossoming, handsome, young, smart, intelligent child.
It's amazing. Did God tell you anything else?
Not that I'm aware of. I can't even remember him telling me that. I just remember coming back with that message from him. So I think he just pretty much held me and told me he was going to continue taking care of me because I had such a hard childhood. And he has blessed me more ways than I could even imagine
Like
in my
what?
life.
Like what?
My husband, my son. My husband is a 20-year vet. He's 12 and a half years older than me. I've always gone to the older men in life. And he honestly lives just to make sure I'm happy. His happiness is just making sure I'm happy and safe and healthy.
That's great.
So it's a love I never knew existed.
Now, you mentioned that you had gifts to me
Yes.
before this. Did you get
Mhm.
any new gifts afterwards?
Yes.
What are
And I have been fine tuning them a lot lately. I've been doing a lot of meditating, and it has made a world of difference. My husband's Puerto Rican. He's Hispanic. First time I had him do a meditation session, um, he was open-minded about it because he knows I see spirit and I talk to spirit and other things like that. So, and that's something I've always done. Well, more so when my brother died. That's when my gifts really started kicking back in. From when I was a child, he died when I was 6. Right after I had just turned 31 days after my 16th birthday. So, him and I were very close. I honestly believe he was born here to be my spirit lead.
Do you believe that you had to come back? And if so, why?
To raise my son. He's an incredible human being, and he's going to change this world some way. That's the only reason I feel like I came back.
You stated that you knew you were going to die before this.
Yes.
Do you think you wanted to die because of your brother's death, or this is something that was possibly planned before this life?
Probably planned before this life, if I'm going to be honest with you. Because, like I said, I've always felt like my brother was born to be one of my spiritual leaders. And that explains his untimely death because he was only 22 when he passed. So I've already outlived my brother.
Hmm.
And he stays close to me all the time, as do many other spirits.
Are you able to communicate with him?
Oh, absolutely.
So, what are the new gifts that you have since you're in DE?
Yeah, my son is about to be 17, and with that comes girls. So I was meeting one of his ex-girlfriend's mothers for the first time about 6, 8 months ago. And while I was meeting her, I've never looked at her child's like social media or hers because I don't like to dig into people before I meet them. And I stopped her mid-sentence and I was so embarrassed afterwards. And I said, it just blurted out of my mouth. And I said, "You're not a Christian, are you?" And she just looked at me. She's like, "No, how did you know that?" I said, "You're agnostic, right?" And she said, "Yes." "Have you been stalking me?" I said, "I'm sorry. It just comes when information comes to me, I just have to verify and check it." So we're still friends to this day. I didn't scare her off too bad.
Does this information come as just a knowingness, or do you think you get like a bulk of information as a
It's different.
download?
Sometimes I will know it and know it for a long time. I mean, a decade, I'll know it. And then sometimes it's just a rush of information that just comes to me. Spirit speaking to me, smells. I've learned over the years to connect the dots to,
Can you give us
and the smell of sulfur, obviously.
what does that mean?
If I smell sulfur, I still believe, I just had a lot of passing recently. All of my parents just passed in the past 3 years. My biological mother died May 13th of 2020. My grandmother, who raised me up, hang on. Excuse me. My grandmother, who raised me up, she was, we had planned on her being the one to pass first because of how severe her COPD and lung cancer was. And it didn't happen that way. I got a call from my sister, my younger sister, who I've always been her mother, because her and our mother had a very unhealthy codependent relationship. And so I always had to step in, pay the bills, play the mother role. So my mother was my grandmother and my father was my grandfather, my mother's parents. And then in November of 2021, I got a call from my sister that my pawpaw was not opening the door. And he was possibly dead inside. He was the first person to hold me when I was brought into this world. And that day I was the last person to hug him as he left this world. And then 2 weeks later, my grandmother died. So they have been full force on my side, not leaving me, since they passed.
In what other ways has your life changed since your NDE?
I'll tell you what, before my NDE, I was, that movie Mean Girls? I was one of them. I'm not anymore. I will give a stranger the shirt off my back if it'll help them temporarily. I would have never done anything like that before. I keep my circle of people very tight now. I wasn't like that before. I'm very careful with who I associate myself with and surround myself with. I only want positivity. I can't have any, I call them energy vampires, sucking what life I have left in me out. Because obviously, after being in a 140-mile-an-hour head-on fatal accident, I'm a chronic pain patient because I broke over 19 bones. My neck, back, and both legs, hip to ankle, and both knees have been repaired or reconstructed twice.
Now, I believe you had 2 NDEs actually. Were they
Yes,
both from the same wreck?
Yes. They were pretty much right after each other because they had to manually keep me alive until the ventilator from Houston got here. And well, 2 times they weren't successful in keeping me alive.
Did you go to the same place both times?
Yes. Pure euphoria. There are no words in any language. And I don't even know all of the languages. I'm going to be honest. But there's just nothing that can ever come close to the feeling of death. And when I tell my husband, because he is a 20-year Army vet, he's seen some harsh death. When I tell him that there's so much beauty in death, sometimes he'll tell me I need to go get checked out. But really there is. And I know that because I've already gone through it twice.
After experiencing that pure euphoria and coming back, were you depressed at all that you were
No.
back here?
Nope. I was so happy I had a second chance to raise my baby, and I've never taken that for granted. He is about to be 17 in a couple of weeks now, and he's already completed his K through 12 education. And next year, he will be enrolling in the police academy.
That's great. Did you have a life review at all during your experience?
I'm like, no, I don't recall ever having that.
That's okay, not all do.
Yeah.
If you had a friend that recently lost somebody and they were grieving, what kind of advice would you give them?
Oh, I tell them death is just beautiful. It's amazing. It's just that person is not suffering in this life anymore, and there is no suffering in the next. I've had to I've lost many people with this drug epidemic going on. My parents, I've lost a lot of people over the years, and I don't feel bad about any of them. I feel selfish for me wanting them here with me because I know where they're at. They're not in pain. They're not suffering.
Do you ever ask yourself, why did I survive when many people would die from an accident like that?
Yeah. Um, 16 years later, I still suffer from survivor's guilt. Because there was a lady that died. The lady that hit us accidentally because she was hit on her side of the interstate. She did die on impact, and that was really hard to come back from. And it was really hard. I remember all the times I screamed at my mom, "Why did you let me live? Why didn't you just let them kill me? Why were you so persistent on this? I'm just living a life of agony." But I didn't know at the time that every season is temporary and not, I've had these ideologies in my head just because I had such a bad upbringing of harming myself or ending my life. Um, that's something I've always struggled with. But it's gotten a lot less, uh, more of a struggle since the accident, and especially since I met my husband and had my son.
Do you think it's possible that your NDE was like a reset or a wake-up call?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So many things needed to change, me being number one of them. Um, and everything that changed for the worse, I always find the silver linings in it. If my accident had to happen, at least I wasn't driving. I look at that silver lining. If it had to happen, at least I was on the job for the federal government. That's another silver lining that's helped me. And I just this those silver linings. I look so hard for the silver linings and hold onto them so tightly because that's what keeps me going when things get really hard and I miss that euphoric feeling of death.
Are you ever able to recreate that feeling during
I wish.
meditation or anything else?
I will start trying. Now that you've brought that up as an option, I will definitely start trying. I know I do it. I do a lot of meditation, floating in water and in my hammock when the weather is not as hot as it is right now. For the time being, with the weather being as hot as it is, I just meditate in bed or whatever. But when I have uh, access to the water or the hammock to meditate, to ground me better with the earth, I get a much better experience through that meditation. And when I was telling you about my husband being open minded to do it one time, he came to me a week later. My husband, I always pick on him and call him my little Eagle Scout because he's was raised Roman Catholic in Puerto Rico with very Catholic ideologies and beliefs. Ooh, don't throw that second one away. I got two in there. Um, and I forgot what I was talking about again.
Your husband's Catholic beliefs.
Yes. He's Roman Catholic, and he doesn't believe in all this other stuff, but he does now. He didn't at first. He came back to me a week later like a crackhead. Jesse, can you do this meditation for me again? Put it on a song so I can go lay in the hammock. I was like, yeah, you got some benefits out of it, huh? So I like being able to help. And I've been tossing the idea around lately of doing meditation sessions on my property since I do have the hammock, the pool, the access to the earth elements to get a better meditation. So that's another venue I've been recently considering the past couple of weeks to help other people.
Do you find your NDE to be inspiring in any way?
Yes.
How?
If I didn't go through that, I would not be who I am right now. And I absolutely love the person I am for once.
It's great.
It's taken a long time to get to this point, especially with doctors. But I'm getting healthier. My diet now consumed is 100% organic and clean. Like I said, I've been meditating more. I've just recently lost 87 pounds in like 5 months.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, I always put in 110% effort. They told me I was not going to be walking by the time or dismissed from the hospital in time for my son's 1-year birthday. Don't ever tell a Sagittarius they can't do something because I'm going to prove you wrong every time. So I got discharged the week before his 1-year birthday. So I spent 3 months in about 4 or 5 hospitals, getting better so I could be the mother he deserved. And now we have a very close relationship. He tells me anything and everything, sometimes stuff I don't even want to know, but I've been able to be a better parent because of this.
Fantastic.
And he's been able to be a better human being, having to learn how to take care of me while I take care of him when he was younger.
Jessica, after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that?
Oh, of course. Yes, I'm an open book. I'm always an open book.
What's the best way to reach you?
Instagram, Facebook.
What are
You
your...
find me on Facebook under Jessica Jeanette, JeanneTTE.
All right. And Instagram is the same way?
J_Gat, GAT.
All right.
The eyes, you'll see a face of the eyes. That's me.
Jessica, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
I could leave you with many. Anything you go through in life, it's seasonal. Don't give up. You're so much stronger than you think you are. And if you've lost somebody, just know they are watching you and they are loved and they're feeling everything we can't feel on this plane, on this earth, in this life. They're feeling it and they're enjoying it and they're watching us and they just want us to be happy and remember them.
Jessica, thank you for that message and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.